Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Corporations have turned us into dots on a spreadsheet. They need us until they don't. They define our worth, control our income, shape our identity, and then one day, without warning, they kick us to the curb and walk away. No safety net, no plan for what happens to you next. Just you suddenly free-falling while they move on to their next quarterly report. And here's what makes it worse. There aren't enough jobs out there to catch everyone who falls. So who's responsible when a company destroys your livelihood and leaves you with nothing? That's the question we're not asking, but we should be. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that hits close to home for many of us, being laid off. If you're watching this because you've recently lost your job, I want you to know you're not alone and this conversation is for you. When we lose our jobs, it's not just about losing income, though that's devastating enough. We lose part of our identity. We lose our sense of place in the world. We lose the security we thought we had. And the impact on our mental health and overall well-being can be profound. But this video is about pulling back the curtain and showing you the game you've been playing, a game where the rules were always stacked against you. I'm going to walk you through the corporate power structure, the real cost of layoffs, and why the system treats you as expendable. Because once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. This is going to be an in-depth look at what's really happening behind closed doors. The priorities corporations actually have that have nothing to do with human relationships or doing good work. I'm exposing the horror of the inhuman strategies of the companies we work for and revealing their hidden operations that keep you powerless. And in the next part, I'm going to show you the way out. But first, you need to see the truth about what you've been trapped in. Let's dive in. Let's talk about what's really happening here, because understanding the game is the first step to stopping playing by their rules. For years, maybe your entire career, you've operated under what I call the corporate employee mindset. This is the framework we've all been taught to accept as normal. You exchange your time, your skills, your energy, your ideas for a paycheck. The company sets your schedule, defines your role, determines your value, and decides whether you deserve benefits or not. They are in total control. You are not. And here's what that control really means. The company doesn't just employ you, they define you. They give you a title, and that title becomes your identity. They assign you a salary, and that number becomes a measure of your worth, not just to them, but to society. When someone asks what you do, you don't say, I'm a creative problem solver, or I'm someone who builds things. You say, I work for this company doing this role. Your job title becomes shorthand for your value as a human being. It gives you stature. It gives you a place in the social hierarchy. It tells people and tells you who you are. This is why losing a job feels like losing part of yourself, because for so many of us, our jobs have become intertwined with who we are. We've spent 40, 50, 60 hours a week carrying this corporate identity, and when it's suddenly stripped away, we don't just lose income, we lose our sense of place in the world. The corporate model sold us a promise: work hard, be loyal, contribute value, and you'll have security. You'll have a career path. You'll be taken care of. But that promise has been broken, quietly, systematically, over the past few decades. And most of us didn't notice until it was too late. Companies today aren't investing in training people in the way they used to. They're not building long-term relationships with employees. Loyalty means nothing anymore, not from them to you, and honestly, it shouldn't mean anything from you to them either. But we still act like it does. We still feel guilty when we think about leaving. We still feel like we've failed when they let us go. And that's the cruelest part of this system. It makes you feel responsible for your own disposability. When you get laid off, there's this insidious voice that starts whispering, what did I do wrong? Was I not good enough? Did I miss something? Should I have worked harder, stayed later, said yes to more projects? But here's the reality. It was never about you. Corporations exist for one purpose, to generate profit for their shareholders. That's not a judgment, it's just a fact. Every decision they make flows from that single priority. They must answer to Wall Street. They must hit their quarterly projections. They must show their growth year after year, or their stock price suffers and executives lose their positions. You're not part of that equation except as a line item on a budget spreadsheet. When companies talk about streamlining operations or restructuring for efficiency or pivoting to new business models, what they're really saying is, we can increase profits by cutting people. You are a number, a cost to be managed, a variable they can adjust when the math doesn't work in their favor. And there's no consideration, none, for what that decision does to you. There's no thought given to the fact that you have rent or a mortgage due in 2 weeks, that you have children who need food and clothes and stability, that you've built your entire life around the assumption that this income would continue, that your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, your sense of self-worth are all about to take a devastating hit. They don't think about the fact that you might not be able to find another job quickly, that the job market might be terrible, that there might not be enough positions available for all the people being laid off across all the companies making these same cold calculations at the same time. None of that factors into their decision. It can't, because they're not operating in the world of human consequences. They're operating in the world of profit margins and shareholder value. Let's be honest about what this really is. It's an inhumane system. You spend years, sometimes decades, giving your time and energy to an organization. You show up every day. You meet their demands. You produce results. You sacrifice time with your family, time for your health, time for your own dreams and interests. You mold yourself to fit their needs, their culture, and their expectations. And then one day, often with no warning, sometimes in a 5-minute Zoom call, occasionally in a mass email, they tell you that you're done. Your access is cut off, your badge doesn't work, your email is disabled, you're escorted out, or you're simply locked out remotely. There's no transition period, no help finding your next position, no acknowledgement of everything you've contributed. Just, you're out, good luck, here's information about COBRA, health insurance, that you probably can't afford. What other relationship in human society works this way? If a friend treated you like this, used you for years and then discarded you the moment you were inconvenient, you'd call them toxic. If a family member did this, you'd call it abusive. But when a corporation does it, we call it business, and we accept it as normal. And then there's the identity piece, which is perhaps the most psychologically damaging aspect of all of this. Companies deliberately cultivate your identification with them. They want you to feel like you're part of something bigger. They create company culture, mission statements, values, team building exercises. They give you branded merchandise. They celebrate your work anniversaries. They make you feel like you belong. But it's all contingent, all of it. Your belonging lasts exactly as long as you're useful to their bottom line, and not 1 second longer. When that ends, you're left with this gaping hole where your professional identity used to be. You don't know how to introduce yourself anymore. You don't know what to say when people ask what you do. You feel ashamed even though you did nothing wrong. You feel lost because the structure that organized your days, your weeks, your years is suddenly gone. This is trauma. Let's call it what it is. It's a traumatic experience that affects your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, your sense of self-worth, your ability to function. Now let's zoom out even further and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about individual companies making individual decisions. This is about a systemic failure that we've all agreed to accept. Our entire society is structured around the assumption that people work to support themselves. We don't have strong social safety nets in most cases. We tie health insurance to employment. We expect people to save for retirement through employer-sponsored plans. We've built an economic system where having a job isn't just about earning money, it's about survival. And then we allow corporations to pull that rug out from under people with no consequences. Think about what actually happens when mass layoffs occur. Thousands of people suddenly lose their income. They can file for unemployment, sure, but unemployment benefits are temporary and usually inadequate. They run out eventually. And then what? These people need to find new jobs. But if multiple companies are laying off workers at the same time, which is exactly what happens during economic downturns or periods of disruption, then there aren't enough jobs to absorb all those workers. It's not possible. The math doesn't work. So where do these people go? What are they supposed to do? The system's answer is essentially, figure it out yourself. Retrain, pivot, be resilient, take a lower paying job, exhaust your savings, rely on family, go into debt, do whatever you have to do to survive. But whose responsibility is this really? Is it the workers' fault that their job was eliminated? No, they were doing their job. They were holding up their end of the bargain. Is it the government's fault? Partially, perhaps. There's an argument to be made about the need for stronger worker protections and social safety nets. But taxpayers can't be expected to indefinitely support everyone who loses their job because corporations decided to boost their profit margins. So doesn't some responsibility fall on the companies themselves? The companies that made themselves essential to people's survival by offering paychecks and then yanked those paychecks away without any plan for what happens to those humans next. So here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Should it be legal for corporations to have this much power over human lives without any accountability for the harm they cause? Because let's be clear about what the harm looks like. We're not just talking about temporary inconvenience. We're talking about long-term hopelessness, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, declining physical health from stress and lack of access to health care, homelessness, family breakdown, the complete destabilization of a person's life. When you take away someone's livelihood, their ability to earn money, to pay for food and shelter, to take care of themselves and their families, what exactly do you think is going to happen to them? A person cannot live without income. Not in this society, not in this economic system. Without money, you can't eat. You can't keep a roof over your head. You can't maintain your health. You become desperate. You decline mentally and physically. Your options narrow. Your future becomes terrifying. This is what corporations do when they lay people off into a market with insufficient jobs. They harm people. They cause genuine, measurable damage to human health and human lives. And we've decided as a society that this is fine, that this is just how business works, that corporations have no responsibility for the human consequences of their decisions as long as they're making those decisions in pursuit of profit. Nobody is going to charge these companies with harming people. Nobody is policing the human toll. Nobody is asking whether companies should be allowed to have this much power over whether people eat or become homeless, live with dignity, or spiral into despair. And here's what makes the whole system even more absurd. You have no power in this dynamic. None. You can't hire yourself at these companies. You can't make them keep you. You can't negotiate for real security. You're not in the conference rooms where the decisions are made about headcount and budget cuts. You don't see the spreadsheets. You don't know when the next round of layoffs is coming. You can't predict it. You can't prevent it. You're told to be productive, to be valuable, to prove your worth, but your worth is determined by factors completely outside of your control. The economy shifts. Consumer behavior changes, new technology emerges, a competitor makes a move, the stock price dips, quarterly projections come up short, and suddenly you're expendable, regardless of how intelligent you are, how hard you work, how much value you've created. It doesn't matter if you're the best employee they have. It doesn't matter if you've never missed a deadline, never complained, never caused problems. It doesn't matter if you've sacrificed your nights and weekends, your family time, your health, your peace of mind for this company. When the spreadsheet says they need to cut costs, you're just a dot on a graph, and dots are easy to erase. This is the bargain we've been making without fully understanding it. We trade our autonomy, our time, our energy, our identity, our sense of security for a paycheck that can disappear at any moment for reasons that have nothing to do with us. We allow companies to make us feel small. They hire us into roles with rigid boundaries. We can't make big decisions and big changes. We can't really grow beyond what they need from us. Over time, we become bored. We long to do more, to contribute in bigger ways, to use more of our capabilities, but our roles don't allow for it. And these issues, our boredom, our frustration, our desire for growth and meaning, they mean nothing to the corporation. They can't mean anything because corporations don't use us as full human beings with needs and desires and potential. They see us as resources to be utilized for maximum efficiency. That's why artificial intelligence is replacing so many workers right now. It's not personal, it's not even surprising. Of course, corporations prefer AI. It doesn't need benefits, doesn't take a vacation, doesn't get sick, doesn't ask for raises, doesn't have feelings or needs or complications. It's the logical endpoint of a system that has always viewed humans as expensive, inefficient, and ultimately replaceable. And while we're participating in this system, it's taking a toll on us that we don't even fully recognize. The stress of working in an environment where you're undervalued and constrained affects your body and mind every single day. You might not notice it because it's gradual, because it's normal, because everyone else is dealing with it too. But it's there. The anxiety of knowing you could be laid off at any time. The frustration of not being able to contribute at your full capacity. The boredom of doing the same limited tasks over and over. The resentment of seeing your ideas ignored or claimed by others. The exhaustion of performing someone else's definition of who you should be for 40+ hours a week. This wears you down. It diminishes you. It makes you smaller than you actually are. And then, when they lay you off, you're dealing not just with the immediate crisis of lost income, but with the years of accumulated damage to your self-concept and your sense of what you're capable of, and your health. So here's where we are. We're living in a system where corporations have enormous power over our survival and well-being, with virtually no accountability for the harm they cause. They control our income, shape our identity, constrain our growth, and can discard us at will. We've been taught to see this as normal, to blame ourselves when it goes wrong, to keep playing by rules that were never designed to benefit us. The question is, now that you see this clearly, what are you going to do about it? Because here's the thing. I'm not telling you this to make you feel hopeless. I'm telling you this to make you angry, to wake you up, to help you see that the game you've been playing is rigged, and the only way to win is to stop playing by their rules. You can't fix this system. You can't make corporations care about you. You cannot force them to take responsibility for your well-being. But you can stop giving them power over your life. You can stop allowing them to define your worth. You can stop waiting for their permission to use your full capabilities. You can stop making yourself small to fit into their boxes. And you can start building something that's yours, something they can't take away from you, something that grows your value instead of constraining it, something that makes you bigger instead of smaller. That's what we're going to talk about in the next video, because once you understand the game you've been losing, you can finally start playing a different game, one where you make the rules. So that's where we are. It's the reality of the corporate system, a game rigged against you from the start, where you trade your autonomy, identity, and your security for a paycheck that can vanish without warning. So I know this has been heavy, and I know it's painful to look at all of this so clearly, but understanding the game you've been playing is essential, because you can't change what you can't see. Now, here's what I want you to know. There is another way. There's a path forward that puts you back in control, that lets you reclaim your power, that turns this devastating moment into the turning point that changes everything. So in part 2, I'm going to show you exactly what that path looks like. We're going to talk about the creator mindset, what it is, why it works, and how you can start building it today, even if you're in crisis mode right now. I'm going to walk you through the practical steps to start a YouTube or a Rumble channel that can eventually replace your corporate income, and more importantly, give you the freedom and security that no job ever could. And there are other things you can sell from this platform. So this isn't just theory. This is a real actionable path that thousands of people are walking right now. People who were exactly where you are. People who thought they couldn't do it. People who are now living with more freedom, more purpose, and more control over their lives than they ever had in the corporate world. So take a break if you need one. Take a deep breath. Process what we've talked about, feel your feelings, and then come back for part 2, because that's where we transform this pain into power. I'll see you there.